and I built it on a piece of real estate that didn't exist at the time. So I built a tea room inside the Texas Renaissance Festival, and I built it on a piece of real estate that didn't exist at the time. A dozen or so years ago, the owner of the show asked me to think about building a tea room someplace else on site. He has about 5 different wedding venues, and one of them, the Basilica, at the time had no roof. And it was not uncommon for George Coulomb to spot a place that money needed to be spent and pause and try to figure out if there was a way to get a vendor to spend the money to do whatever that thing was. So he asked me to investigate the idea of building a formal tea room there. And I did the math. It didn't work. It was too far from my bakery. It was kind of out in the middle, hard to service. It works better as a wedding venue than it did as a food venue. And I told him that. But he had kind of planted this seed. I mean, I had built a really strong brand with Queen's Pantry, the bakery, and people do like tea. I love tea. I have a whole line of teas. And, we're not a Renaissance reenactment park, right? We are a fantasy of what a Renaissance village is looking like and feeling like. And so people think they're going to England. And when people think of England, they think of tea and they think of a tea experience. So it fit that there ought to be a tea experience somewhere in the park. The Basilica was not the spot for it. Certainly not if I was going to do it, because it was really far from the pantry. But that seed was planted. And a couple years later, my neighbor, who was a jeweler, she and I shared a wall. She shared the wall of her jewelry shop was the wall to the bakery. And so at 5 a.m. on every show day, she had to put up with the noise of bakers banging around in there. And she was a good sport about it. And I asked her for first denial when she was ready to retire. And I would probably like to buy her frontage so that I could expand my bakery. And so she let me know when she was ready. She had 14 feet. 14 feet wide is not enough room for a bakery with sit-down space, or for a tea room with sit-down space. It's just enough room for a little counter. But it was deep. It was as deep as my bakery was. So it's like 50 feet deep and 14 feet wide. So I bought that space and built a tea room, but not in that space. I kind of built it adjacent to that space. Queen's Pantry is the eighth booth in on the right on your way in the Texas Renaissance Festival. And it's the breakfast shop, and it's a bakery, and it had some design limitations at the counter. One was the fact that it was a breakfast shop and it faces east meant that my counter staff, who can't wear sunglasses because sunglasses are not part of their Renaissance costume, are facing the sun at the time of day that they are the absolute busiest. And there just wasn't really a way to get them shades. They could wear big brimmed hats until they were running into each other, but it was a problem I would like a solution for. And I had a similar but different problem at the end of the day, because being a food shop near the front gate, it's one of the last places people see as they're leaving the park after the fireworks. And because I had no awning of any sort out there in front of Queen's Pantry, what the public saw were silhouettes against a white wall with signage and decoration on it. But they couldn't see any faces. They couldn't see smiling faces of people that work for me because I didn't have any way to get light in front of them. And then there was the problem that, it's not a problem, but baked goods and sweets sell better when it's kind of cold and damp. You want a cup of coffee and a little nosh, a little sugar to kind of warm you up a little bit. And so some of the busiest times that we had would be when the weather was a little inclement. Another thing about bad weather at a festival is people often don't go as far into the park because if the weather takes a turn, they want to be closer to their cars. Being at the front of the show, the number of pennies per person that the bakery would make would actually be higher in bad weather than it would in great weather. So just an interesting little data point. So all of these were truths about Queen's Pantry. And Queen's Pantry is like 40 or 50 feet wide. 6 different windows. Sometimes I'd have 2 people in each one of those windows. They're little Dutch arch shaped so that we can close it up nicely at night. Keep the squirrels out because there's a bunch of baked goods in there. But George wanted a tea room, and by now I wanted a tea room too. So what I did is I created a new space. We built a deck that's like 65 feet long and 24 feet deep up above the pathway in front of Queen's Pantry. So I was able to make this space up on a deck that became the tea room space, and Queen's Pantry solved all those other little problems. And let's see, these are just concept drawings. It doesn't look exactly like this, but the feel was something like this. So this being the tea counter and this being the Queen's Pantry counter next door, this porch out here, would have been the side view as we originally envisioned it. This is where we're going to put tables to have tea room guests. We also pictured it having, here it is from the front. So here's the deck. This was little cutouts of teapots and teacups out of 1x12s. And there's a door in the front of this that goes into the 14-foot wide kitchen. So we built a 2-story building in the 14 feet, and upstairs is a catering kitchen. So this was drawn at like 8 feet wide, which is completely unworkable. And so we went ahead and went all the way to here, put a door in the middle, and built a catering kitchen in there. We have a bar that rolls out and functions out here now. And because we're selling tickets to a timed event, I couldn't have a pergola. I needed to have a real roof because what am I going to do if I've sold 40 tickets for tea and it's raining? I need to be able to serve tea out of the rain. So that is now a roof instead of a pergola, but it does have tables out here. And we had this type of railing for the first 3 or 4 years. And then George Coolham, again, the owner, said that needs to be wrought iron. And he was right, because with my cutesy little plan of teapots and teacups cut out, nobody could see that there were people up there, which meant that fewer people asked how to get up there. So he made it possible with the use of his metal sculpting crew at his arboretum for me to get wrought iron to replace all that. And it's much more open and really nice. It was a little more secretive before, but I think it works better as it is. It's pretty. But that space didn't exist. And being willing to think outside the box, or as George would say, what box, meant that I saw oh, no, we could make a tea room. It's just going to float above the space where people walk in the show. So now in inclement weather, Queen's Pantry is banging because I have better protection for guests than other food options in the area. And I filled that space with Edison light bulbs. And so now it's really well lit and really welcoming. And you can see the smiling faces of my counter crew late in the day. which is fabulous. And in the morning, my crew is not facing a blaring sunrise. Like the show opens at 9 a.m., which is just about when the sun gets over the tall buildings and just like right in the eyeballs of everyone that worked for me that shift. So they'd be trying to make eye contact with people and get them to start thinking about their order when they actually couldn't see anybody at all. So those are the problems that led me to think to a really different solution. So now if you buy a ticket for high tea, or I have another tea, I have a smaller tea also. We do high tea 3 times a weekend, more on the long weekend, but 2 times on Saturday and 1 time on Sunday, there's a high tea. So it's at 3 o'clock both days and also 11 on Saturday. And it's a full meal. You're going to sit there for a couple hours. You will have royalty there having tea with you and entertaining you. And you will have a lot of food. Most people take some food with them. It's a lot of food. And it's kind of, Queen's Pantry is still known for selling really big desserts. This way you can like try multiple things without having to face a giant slice of cake or the world's largest brownie or whatever. And that meal, yes, a couple hours long, endless, a bottomless pot of tea. The teas are all designed by me, and every tea that I sell is based on outrageous female character from history that you probably haven't heard of. And then we have a new tea this year also. And the new tea is a Renaissance tea. It's like a light nosh. It's going to be at brunch time on Sunday morning. So if you're just kind of stumbling out and you want an easy start to the day, it costs less than I've ever charged for a tea on site. And consequently, it's the one you want to bring your princess to. If your children have been wanting to come to tea, that one has 2 menu choices. One is a royal tea and one is the children's tea. And the only difference is the flavor profiles are a little less adventurous for the children's tea. It gets, a couple finger sandwiches, a scone, some jam, a couple desserts, and bottomless tea for a couple hours. That one, there's also a meal selection for the high tea, and that is a choice between a standard, that's not what I call it but in the ticketing, but I can't remember right now, or a vegetarian. So you do have decisions to make in the ticketing process. You're going to choose your seat. There are like 36 seats on the map, plus a limited mobility table. That one is at ground level, and we will send entertainers down to serve you and make everything fabulous, but keep you from having to deal with the stairs. And the other insider secret is that there are 8 seats available upstairs that are not on that map. So every day, even if the online ticketing interface, that's the word I'm looking for, tells you that that we're sold out, we won't be completely sold out. If you get to the tea room pretty early in that day, ask if we still have tickets available, because we have 8 that we don't list. The only time that those would be gone before a show opened is if the wedding program asked for them or the PR team asked for them. But other than that, they cannot be sold to anybody before the day of. So it is possible to get tickets on the day of the show. We've added 2 more teas because last year we sold out pretty early. We sold out like halfway through the show. The online tickets were all sold. So we've doubled up the number of teas that are available. 3 of those are high teas. 1 is a Renaissance tea. And I believe the questions are all answered. I'm going to link the tea website, tea experience page underneath this. And yeah, tickets are on sale. If you're coming, make sure that your tickets to the festival are the same day as your tickets to tea because all of us have dated tickets. So I think that's it. Let me know if you have any questions about it. I'll happily talk about menu items or what it takes to develop a tea or any of that stuff. I'll talk to you soon.